Welcome to this CipherVibe Cloud Security Guide. Today, we will make machine authentication and service identity step-by-step guide for 2026 practical, prioritized, and connected to how real cloud environments are operated. Machine authentication controls how services, jobs, containers, pipelines, and partners prove identity without a human typing a password. This episode covers workload identity, scoped service accounts, mTLS, signed webhooks, secret managers, CI/CD tokens, rotation, revocation, and logging. The purpose is not to memorize a collection of service names. It is to build a mental model you can apply when accounts, teams, workloads, and threats change. We will define the core ideas, walk through a repeatable security workflow, examine mistakes that frequently create exposure, design useful safeguards, and finish with a practical hardening roadmap. Pause when you need to. Write concepts in your own words, record observations, and distinguish what the evidence proves from what you are merely assuming. That habit is more valuable than rushing through another tool demonstration. Start with 4 concepts that provide the vocabulary for machine authentication and service identity, step-by-step guide for 2026. First, a service identity should represent one workload, integration, job, or automation path rather than a shared team or environment secret. Second, static shared secrets are simple but hard to attribute, rotate, scope, and revoke cleanly. Third, workload identity and short-lived credentials reduce the need to distribute long-lived secrets across hosts, containers, and pipelines. Fourth, mTLS can authenticate both sides of a service connection when certificate issuance, rotation, trust stores, and revocation are managed correctly. Fifth, signed webhooks need timestamp checks, replay protection, secret rotation, and event-level verification. Sixth, CI/CD tokens are production credentials and should be governed with the same seriousness as application secrets. Do not study these as isolated definitions. Ask which asset or business service is involved, where the relevant trust boundary sits, which identity performs the action, and what reliable evidence would show that the control worked. Security reasoning is a chain. Source evidence supports an observation. The observation supports a conclusion. The conclusion informs a proportionate decision. The decision has an owner, an expected result, and a way to verify it. When any link is missing, say so. A professional explanation can include uncertainty without becoming vague. For example, a network record may prove that 2 addresses communicated, but it may not prove which human initiated the action or whether the content was malicious. Now turn the mental model into a repeatable workflow. First, inventory service accounts, workload identities, shared secrets, certificates, webhook secrets, CI/CD tokens, partner integrations, and secret manager entries. Second, classify each credential by owner, workload, environment, permission, data access, rotation date, last use, and blast radius. Third, replace broad static secrets with workload identity, short-lived credentials, scoped service accounts, or mTLS where practical. Fourth, design rotation with overlap, deployment automation, monitoring, rollback, and emergency revocation. Fifth, protect webhooks with signatures, timestamp windows, replay defense, event idempotency, and least privilege processing. Sixth, test compromise secret, expired certificate, wrong workload, pipeline token leak, webhook replay, rotation failure, and emergency disablement. Before acting, define the objective, scope, owner, and success condition. Collect the smallest amount of trustworthy evidence needed to understand the situation. Preserve timestamps and sources so another person can follow your reasoning. Priorities should be explainable. Consider exposure, identity and privilege, sensitive data, business importance, exploit conditions, existing safeguards, reversibility, and confidence. A dramatic label should never replace that analysis. The workflow does not end when a command succeeds, a ticket closes, or a dashboard turns green. Verify the new state with fresh evidence. Check for recurrence and for side effects introduced by the change. This disciplined loop, observe, interpret, decide, act, verify, and learn appears in every cybersecurity specialty. Understanding failure modes will protect you from attractive but unreliable shortcuts. First, shared service credentials make it difficult to determine which workload acted or which team owns the risk. Second, long-lived secrets in environment variables, CI logs, container images, and developer machines can survive for months after exposure. Third, certificates without automated rotation can create outages or push teams into unsafe emergency changes. Fourth, webhook signatures without timestamp or replay checks can accept captured messages again later. Fifth, CI/CD tokens often have broad production access and weak human review. Sixth, missing service identity logs make lateral movement and abuse hard to reconstruct. These mistakes often share one cause: confusing an available signal with a complete explanation. A tool can report a finding, a successful action, or a score while important scope, context, ownership, and verification remain missing. Also resist copying commands without understanding their inputs, outputs, permissions, and side effects. Run one controlled change at a time and record what happened. If an exercise does not behave as expected, that is useful evidence. Stop, inspect the environment, revise the hypothesis, and explain the difference. Good security work is not a performance of certainty, it is careful reasoning under imperfect information. Reliable security uses layers because no single control can prevent every failure. First, use one identity per workload or integration with narrow permissions, clear owner, environment separation, and lifecycle metadata. Second, prefer workload identity or short-lived credentials over static secrets when the platform supports it. Third, use secret managers, limited read permissions, automated rotation, and deployment-safe reload patterns. Fourth, use mTLS or signed requests for high-trust service communication with managed certificates and observable expiration. Fifth, secure webhooks with signatures, timestamp windows, replay protection, idempotency, secret rotation, and source validation where possible. Sixth, monitor new service credentials, permission expansion, unusual source, dormant identity use, failed signatures, expired certificates, and pipeline token anomalies. For each important risk, ask 5 questions. What makes the event less likely? What evidence would reveal it? Who can contain it? How will trustworthy operation be restored? Who owns the decision and accepts remaining risk? Least privilege applies to people, applications, devices, automation, data stores, and administrators. Access should be scoped, separated, monitored, reviewed, and removed when it is no longer needed. Every important control needs a test strategy. Include representative normal activity, negative cases, misuse, dependency failure, and rollback. A written policy is not evidence that a technical or operational control works. Finally, preserve the evidence trail from observation through decision, action, and verification. That history supports investigations, audits, lessons learned, and honest measurement. Turn this episode into a practical hardening plan. Start with inventory. Write down every place this authentication pattern appears, who owns it, what data it can reach, where credentials are stored, how it is revoked, and which logs prove normal or suspicious use. Then reduce the biggest exposure first. Remove stale access, shorten lifetimes where possible, narrow scope, protect storage, add recovery or revocation paths, and make sure high-risk workflows require stronger proof. Next, test abuse cases. Do not only test the happy path. Test stolen credentials, expired credentials, replay, reset, or recovery abuse, wrong audience, wrong issuer, missing logs, disabled controls, and emergency revocation. Finally, measure progress with machine credentials without owner, static secrets older than policy, services using workload identity, certificate expiration alerts, failed webhook signature events. Each metric needs an owner, a reliable source, a review cadence, and a known limitation. Strong authentication security is a repeatable operating rhythm. Choose the right pattern, reduce credential theft, validate every token or session, protect recovery, centralize evidence, secure machine identity, and rehearse response. For chapter markers and primary links, open the description. For more evidence-based cybersecurity research, visit CipherVibe.com and subscribe to CipherVibe. Copyright 2026 CipherVibe. All rights reserved. This briefing is general education. Validate controls with authorized administrators in your own environment.